people's favorite topic, and sometimes not their favorite topic. I think if you are old like me and you are done being in school, either you have good memories of school or you might have bad memories of school. Not everyone likes school. So today we are going to have an English lesson though about school. Let me just make sure that everything is working. Not their favorite topic. Yep, there's me talking on my computer. Let me turn that off. So again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Bob the Canadian. Welcome to this English lesson. Our topic today is school. So I'm going to go over about 35 different vocabulary words related to school. I'm going to explain their meaning. I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of them. And I will take questions via the form that Todd will be posting occasionally. He posted it once already. So I do ask if you have a question, please keep it on topic. So the topic today is school, but I think maybe we should get started. Welcome to everyone here. I was excited this morning because I saw a lot of names in the chat that I recognize. A lot of what I call my regulars are here this morning, and that's really, really cool. There are people who have been coming to live streams since early last fall, and I recognize some of the names. I don't want to shout out any names because I don't want to accidentally forget anybody, but certainly if you are a regular, if you have been watching these lessons every week, I just love it that you're here. It's very, very cool. We're here to talk today about school. So the first thing about school is it can be the name of the building. So this here is a school, but we also refer to it somewhat less concretely. I'm having trouble coming up with the words to say this, but this is a school. When you drive past a school, you can say, oh, there's a school. But we also refer to school as, you know, oh, last year I was in school. You're not talking about a particular building. When you are in school, it simply means that you are attending a school or you are going every day. So school can mean the building, but it can also mean the state of being enrolled at a school. Hopefully that made some sense. I hope the explanations get better as I go along. But here we have a school. A little bit about me, if you didn't know, I am a high school teacher, and in 2 weeks, classes will begin again. I am actually standing in my classroom right now, and I'll give you a tour of my classroom in a later video. But I teach primarily French and computer studies. Occasionally, I do teach English, but I haven't taught English for a couple years. And I also teach a business class. So I went to school to be a teacher, and I am going into my 24th year of teaching. That's a lot, eh? That sounds like a lot to me. Anyways, we're going to keep moving along. Again, we're going to go through some of the simpler vocabulary words related to school first. In Canada, someone who goes to a school, a child or a teenager who goes to school, we call them a student, okay? So a student is someone who learns in a school. In other English-speaking countries, though, they might use the word pupil, so pupil, a little hard to pronounce, or they might use the word learner. So in Canada, we use the word student. So I have classes. In my classes, there are a number of students. We do know what pupil or learner means. So in Canada, if we hear the word, we do understand it. And also, did you know pupil is also in your eye? You have your pupil of your eye. So those are the people that go to school and learn. And in Canada, whether you are in elementary school or grade school, I should tell you the levels, shouldn't I? I don't have sheets for this, but in Canada you start in kindergarten when you're age 4 or 5. Then you have grade school or elementary school, which is grades 1 through 8. So age 6 to age 13. And then we have high school or secondary school, which is age grade 9 to grade 12, and it's age 14 to age 17 or 18. So in Canada, no matter what level of education you are in, we call you a student. I know it's different in other languages. Sometimes younger children, you use a different word for student, but in Canada, it's student. And I want to go over, I think you all know what a teacher is, because I'm teaching you right now, and I am a teacher. But a teacher is the person who stands at the front of the classroom and creates the lesson and delivers the lesson or teaches the lesson. But I wanted to make sure I mentioned teacher because sometimes people get teacher confused with professor. So in Canada, a teacher, and this is true in the United States as well, in Canada, a teacher teaches grade 1 through grade 12, actually kindergarten through grade 12, and a professor teaches at a college or university. Okay, let me say that one more time. Bob should have used his own picture, yeah. So again, a teacher teaches, remember the levels, kindergarten, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to grade 12. We would call that person a teacher. And if you teach in a college or university, we would call you a professor. I know in some languages like French, you say professeur to refer to a teacher. But in English, generally a professor is someone who teaches past high school. I hope that made sense. I wish I had made a sheet showing you all the different levels of education. A teacher teaches in a classroom. So here you see a classroom. This is a very typical looking classroom. In fact, maybe I should show you quick. I don't often give a tour. Let's see if I can do this without breaking anything. But I showed you a picture of the classroom, and then if I walk over here and turn, you can see that the room I'm in looks a lot like the picture I just showed you. That's my some of my desks for where my students sit once the semester starts. Let me see if I can get this hooked back up again. I shouldn't unhook things in the middle of a live stream. There we go. I have to push a button here. I think things are still working. So that is a classroom. As a distinction between teacher and professor, there's also a distinction between classroom and lecture hall. So a teacher, can't see me, here I'll go in the middle. A teacher teaches in a classroom. Generally, a professor will teach in a lecture hall. And this isn't true all the time. Sometimes professors teach in classrooms as well. But a lecture hall is usually found at a college or university. One moment here, there's things popping up on my screen. And it has usually like a lot more seats for students to sit in than a classroom would, okay? So you have a professor standing at the front of a lecture hall, or you might find a teacher standing at the front of a classroom. I hope that all made sense to you. I'm just gonna stop for a moment to say hi to the 411 people who are watching. Did you know I like to pretend there's only 4 or 5 people watching? I usually just pretend some of my first regular viewers are the only ones watching, because when I think about 420 people watching, I get a little bit nervous because it seems like a lot of people. So you saw when I gave you a little glimpse of my classroom, you saw desks. So a student would sit in a desk, and this is a very standard desk in Canada. This is very, very normal for a desk in Canada. The seat is attached to the front, and students can put things underneath and they can do their work on the top. Although, I will say this, my students, we have these kinds of desks in my classroom. My students don't like them because once they have their books and their laptop open on top, they start to run out of space. My students feel like these desks are very small. Years ago, we didn't have computers, so the desks worked really well. But these days, students have a computer as well, and they find the desk is quite tiny. The desk is quite small for learning. The teacher usually has two kinds of boards at the front, and I'm not sure you can see both of these. Usually they have a whiteboard, and if you're wondering what a whiteboard is, this is a whiteboard. This is a whiteboard. That's an O. My spelling is not very good. And a whiteboard is the new style of board. Older classrooms at my school as well have blackboards. And a blackboard is something that they used to have in classrooms, but they're starting to be replaced by whiteboards. A blackboard is something that you write on with chalk. So the teacher uses either a whiteboard marker, so this right here under my finger is a, yeah. So Tiago says the blackboard is green in my picture. Yes, so a blackboard doesn't have to be black. Some of them are black and some of them are green. So even though it's green, we still call it a blackboard. These are whiteboard markers. So I just used a whiteboard marker. It says, this right here says super whiteboard marker. I'm not sure if that's in focus, but that is what you would use to write on a whiteboard. And this is colored chalk, and you would use chalk to write on a blackboard. There is a couple of other things on the wall of a classroom or on the walls. There are often bulletin boards. So a bulletin board is usually made out of cork. The material it's made out of is cork, so that you can use small pins to post things on the bulletin board. So you would have seen in previous live streams, I have a bulletin board with lots of flags on it. So a bulletin board is a place in a classroom where you can pin up different papers. I usually use my bulletin boards to put student work on the walls. So if students do a project, or if they do an assignment for me, a lot of times I will put that up on the wall. Yes, blackboard, Michael, is when you use chalk. That's a great question. I should pause though. I'm forgetting to check. Oh, there are a lot of questions, and I forgot to check the questions. So here we go. I'm going to do a few questions really quickly. Lolly says, in France, scoring is by letters. Is this the same in Canada? So in Canada, we use percent. Everything is out of 100%. So when students are graded, we use the word graded, they get a score or a mark or a grade, which is a percent. So if you have a 90% average in school, that's pretty good. If you write a test and you get 96% on the test, that's really, really good. So we don't use letters. They do use letters in some parts of North America, and it can be different from school to school, but most schools in Ontario, Canada, use percentages. Let's see here. Dimitro says, hi Bob, from the Ukraine, by the way. Hi Dimitro. How are you getting ready for the upcoming school year? Any annual preparation work? Do you have any meetings with other teachers, students, or their relatives? Thanks. So here's what happens in my life. It is summer in Canada, so I do not need to be at school, but starting in a week and a bit, not next week, but the week after, I will have meetings all week. So I will be at work, and my job that week is to prepare for my fall teaching. I will be meeting with teachers, with the principal of the school, and we will be just getting ready. So soon I will be back at work, and we will be getting ready for the school year, Dimitro. Let's see here. Kim Young Kwong says, hello Bob, is Canadian high school usually all boys or all girls or combined? They are usually combined. We do have some schools that are just boys schools or girls schools, but most high schools and grade schools in Canada, in Ontario, are guys and girls together. Yes, that was a great question. Let's see here. There's a few grammar questions here. I'm going to finish. Next one is from Kat Anna. Can we say somebody finished school or somebody graduated from school? You can say both. So my oldest son just finished high school last year. So that's a totally fine way to say it. I could also say my oldest son just graduated from high school last year. So both work, no problem there. Let's see here. Beata says, hi Bob, I'm also a teacher at a primary school. Excellent. So primary school is another way to say elementary school or grade school, okay? I say grade school because I'm in Canada. So Beata's at an primary school. The topic is interesting to me. How long does it take to make a lesson in Canada? In Poland, a lesson takes 45 minutes and then 10-minute breaks. So you're asking how long it takes to teach a lesson. In our high school, we have 72-minute classes, and there are 4 classes a day, and there's small breaks between each class. So a given school day, students are in 4 72-minute classes a day. In elementary school or grade school, the classes are somewhat shorter, usually about 20 to 40 minutes, but they also study many more subjects in one day, obviously. So one more question, and then we will keep going. Oh, here we go. So Saeed from Somalia says, hello, sir, good morning. Hope you're doing well. What can students get suspended for in school in Canada? What if they cut or shave their hair in a certain way? So haircuts are not a problem. You can have your hair any way you want, but you can get suspended from school for, being aggressive or, hitting or fighting with other students. You can be suspended for drinking alcohol. You can be suspended for having drugs. So any of the things that we would consider illegal in the regular world also end up being the things that would get you suspended. By the way, suspended is when you're kicked out of school, when they ask you to leave for a day or 3 days. You can also get suspended for cheating. So if you copy other students' work, and just various things that are not good in general, for sure. One more question. Let's see here. Bear Wilson asks, Bear Wilson says, does graduating online in Canada have a great value? So any kind of education in Canada has great value, and also around the world. In Canada, you're required to get your high school diploma. So in Canada, you have to be in school until you're done grade 12. You have to be in school till you're 17. After high school, you can go and work. But generally, everyone wants to have a high school diploma because in order to get any job, they usually ask that you have that. So let me just rephrase that. I'm not sure if it's the law. Let me check. Do you have to attend school until grade 12 in Canada? This is where Bob the Canadian looks something up. It says, by law, children in Canada must go to school depending on the grade, so generally you need to be in school until you're done high school. We were talking about things that are on the wall of a classroom. This is actually on the ceiling. There is often a projector and a screen. Am I pointing in the right spot? No. There is often a projector and a screen in the classroom. This is something that's fairly new, just in the last 10 to 15 years. We used to not have projectors or screens. And in fact, many classrooms actually have a large television on the wall as well, so that teachers can prepare their lessons and then they can show their lesson from their laptop onto a projector or onto a television. So I do that quite a bit. Most of my lessons I prepare using my computer. I think what's funny is when I do a live stream, I use paper. I'm thinking of changing that though. We'll see in the future. Let's see here. Students will have a number of things when they come to a classroom. So they'll have a binder. So you see these rings. So the rings open and close, and sometimes and students will put paper in their binder. So they will carry a binder with lots of blank lined paper, and they will use that to take notes during class. So students will come with a binder. They will have a textbook. Usually the school will give them a textbook. So this is a math textbook. I know in Britain they say maths, but in Canada we just say math. The only way we can agree on how to say it is if we both say mathematics. But this is a math textbook. So a student will have a binder. They will have a textbook. They will also have, in each class, a pencil, a pen, a highlighter, and an eraser. So except towards the end of the semester, many students they start to lose their pens. So you know what a pencil is, obviously. I think this is one of the first English words you learn. And then we have pens. These are Bic pens. I think Bic is a French company, but a lot of students have Bic pens. And then a highlighter is like a yellow or other color so that you can lightly highlight words. So when you highlight something, it means you emphasize it. This is a really great thing to have if you're learning English, by the way. Use a highlighter. If you have books you own, a highlighter is really great. And then usually students have an eraser so they can erase things they write with their pencil. And then they carry all of that in a pencil case. So a pencil case is something that you buy, or sometimes students make them. And usually students do something that's kind of fashionable. And then inside of it you would have, this student has some pens and some colored pencils, and of course their earbuds or earphones, so that they can listen to music. I think I'm going to just check. Oh, let me keep going. They also might have a pencil sharpener, and this is usually in every classroom. There is a pencil sharpener. So pencil sharpener. I know this is a hard word to get out, a hard word to pronounce. So a pencil sharpener. And students will also have with them now a laptop. Every student in my school has a laptop. It's becoming more and more common for schools in North America to require students to have a laptop in order to come to school. And they also have sometimes a calculator. This is a scientific calculator. And then they keep all of those things in their backpack or their book bag. So even though this is a backpack, in French we say a sac à dos, this is a backpack, we also call it a book bag. Even if there's no books in it, sometimes we call it a book bag. So anyways, let me do some questions. There are lots of questions this morning, and I'm not being very good at answering the question. Let's see here. Gisela says, let me copy this for a sec. Gisela says, my first English teacher was an old dragon. I'm assuming that means he was a mean teacher. Maybe you guys should call me an old dragon. Maybe I should become a little more gruff would be the word, like not smile as much, be a serious teacher. Let's see here. Anise has a question. Hello, Bob. Oh, hello, Teacher Bob. Is there a school between elementary and high school? Because there's a country and they have a middle school between elementary and high school. So in Ontario, Canada, we don't have a middle school, but it is very common in the United States and in other provinces of Canada to have another school between the elementary school and the high school. So that's great, Anise. Thank you for bringing that up. And it's called middle school. I think I have nephews and nieces that live in the United States, and they went to a middle school. Let's see here. Henry from Taiwan says, hi, Bob. Your English videos are indeed online. They're a borderless school. Yes, very much so. Thank you for your dedication and efforts uploading so many great lessons for us pupils worldwide. No problem, Henry. Lots of fun for me, and I'm glad that you guys like watching them. Henry, I will say this, though. My last video on using the music of the Beatles to learn English. I learned that for some people in Taiwan, they couldn't watch all the Beatles videos. So that was sad for me. I hope they figured out, I hope you figured out a way around that. Let's see here. Elena says, do you use Don to name a teacher or professor? No, generally we just call them by Mr. or Mrs. and then their last name. Some students will refer to a male teacher by saying sir, or a female teacher by saying ma'am, but generally we just say their Mr. or Mrs. and then their last name. Let's see here. Asgar says, hi Bob, what is the difference between a professor and a lecturer? They are, in my opinion, I think they are the same thing, okay? You might want to look that up, Asgar, because in my understanding, when I took classes at university, you have a professor or a lecturer. They are the same in my book. But I would check that because I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm 100% correct on that. Let's see here. Demetrio says from the Ukraine, is it easier to teach nowadays than it was, say, 15 to 20 years ago? And how is it different? Given now students have a much wider access to lots of information on the internet. Thanks. So here's what I will say. It's much different teaching French now than it was 20 years ago. And it's actually better. I wouldn't say it's easier, but 20 years ago, the only thing that we had was I would need to bring a CD to the classroom, and maybe we could watch something off of a DVD. But now we have the internet, so students can do practice quizzes on the internet. They can watch French YouTube videos in my class. I can put they can do some Duolingo. I don't know if any of you have tried Duolingo. So it's not easier, but it's certainly different. And Dimitro, because I love technology, I like computers, teaching for me is really, really fun right now because I can use computers to do so many things. Super fun. So is it easier? No, I think it's just different. Gaga says, are you angry when students don't obey? And have you eaten breakfast? So yes, I had breakfast. In fact, I'm still drinking my coffee. I went to Tim Hortons this morning. I was running late, so I went to the drive-thru and I got a decaf coffee and I just got a little biscuit. So do I get angry when students don't obey? I am generally not the kind of teacher that gets angry with students. I am usually I try to be really, really patient, and I try to be really, really kind. And I try to find ways to get students to like my classes so that I don't have to have any problems. I do have problems sometimes with students, but generally I just try to find a way to make it work where I can be calm and not get angry. So I think I succeed at that, but not always. Sometimes there's situations where students just need to go talk to the principal, where I just say, you know what, I think you should go talk to the principal today because your behavior is not good. Lolly Lolly says, do you take attendance or roll call at the beginning of the lesson? Yes, in every single class, every day. The very first thing we do is we take attendance, which is also called roll call, to make sure every student is there. So on my computer, I have an alphabetical list of my students. And when they come in the classroom, as they sit down, I mark down or I check off that they are present that day. And that happens 4 times a day. So every class we take attendance. I'm just going to stop and say thank you to everyone who's watching. We're about halfway through this lesson. We are learning today, as you probably figured out, we are talking today about school. Everyone's favorite memory in life is school. And we are about, I think we're about halfway through. We'll keep going. So a lesson is the activities that a teacher plans for each class each day. So right now, all of these papers would be my lesson that I created. And this video that we're doing where I talk about this is the lesson. A lesson can also include things for the students to do. So when I plan my lessons, when I teach each day in my regular classroom, Lolly asked, I take attendance. Then usually I have them do some reading. They have a time where they do some writing in French. They have a time where we do some speaking, and we usually do some listening. We do some vocabulary building. Even in my lessons, sometimes we play games that help us learn French words. So the lesson is everything that happens during that one class on that day. In university, they would call it a lecture. So a lecture is a little different than a lesson because generally the students listen and the professor talks. So a lecture is less interactive, I would say. Students would sit and listen and take notes. When you take notes, it means you write down some of the things that you are learning. I know some of the people who watch this live stream actually take notes while they're doing it. So a lesson and a lecture. Let me see here. I just have to check something. Here we go. A course then is a series of lectures or lessons in a particular subject. I couldn't find a good picture for this, but when you take a course, it means that you are studying one thing, and there are a number of different classes or lessons that you do in order to complete the course. So I know that some of you take online English courses. So you sign up for a course, and the course includes maybe 10 or 20 lessons that you need to complete, and maybe there is a test or examination at the end. So a course is like a set of lessons, usually on one particular subject. Couple other things about schools. Students generally have, in high school, they generally have a locker. So a locker is a small storage area. It's usually located in the hallway of a school, and it's a place where students can put their backpack during lunchtime or other times of the day. They can keep the textbooks that they have in here. They can keep some of their personal belongings in here, and usually it has a lock on the front, a combination lock. And I didn't bring a picture of a combination lock. I should have done that. Sorry about that. Let's see here. Recess. So the other thing that students might have, and this is usually in our elementary schools, is there are times of the day where they can go play outside. So recess is something where there is no class for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and the students are allowed to go play outside. It's very important, in my opinion, for students to get active playtime, especially when they are younger. I think kids have a lot of energy, and for them to learn well, sometimes it's good for them to go outside and play. So some of you might be wondering, how do we have recess in Canada in the winter when it's really cold? We just send the kids outside. Well, in the high school, we don't have recess, but in the grade school, the kids put on their snowsuits and their mittens and their winter hats and their winter boots, and they go play in the snow. It's really, really good. In grade schools and elementary schools, they usually have a playground where the students can go play during recess. So recess, it's a great time. Lots of fun things to do. Kids can play games at recess, etc. Let's see here. Marlon has a question. Marlon's question is, hi Bob, what is the difference between a college and a university? So it really depends on whether you're in Canada or the United States. In the United States, colleges and universities can be fairly similar. In Canada, generally a university is for some of the, like if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher, you would go to a university. If you wanted to be a carpenter or a plumber or someone who makes videos, you might go to a college. So colleges in Canada generally teach real trades, we call them. They teach you how to do a certain job specifically. So if you want to be a policeman or a fireman, I think fireman, you would go to a college. If you want to be a nurse, you go to a college. But if you are going into something where you are going to be doing a lot of writing and a lot of research, you usually go to a university. So not a great description, I think, but that is in Canada the difference. It really depends on what career, what job you want to have. So if you wanted to be an auto mechanic in Canada, you would go to college. If you wanted to be, let me see here, if you wanted to be a university professor, you would go to university to become a professor. Hopefully that made some sense. Let's see here. Eunice says, hi Bob, I'm from Azerbaijan. How many students are studying in Canada in school? I don't know. In my school, we have about 300 students. But I think that is something I'm not aware yet at this point, how many students are studying in Canada. Quite a few. Let's see here. Miroslav, hi Miroslav. There is a saying in my language, Serbian. It says, from the cradle to the tomb, the most beautiful is the school age. That saying rhymes in my language and sounds better or nicer. I think there's some meaning here. If you think about life from about age 6 to age 18, it is a beautiful time of life. It is a really nice time to be alive because you don't have a lot of responsibilities in life. Your parents feed you, you have a house to live in. The only thing you have to do is go to school. So that's cool, Miroslav. Let's see here. Can't see the letter there. Carl says, it's either Carl or Carrie. Carl, are secondary schools in Canada classified in different groups, like good schools, average schools, and bad schools, or are all the schools offer the same quality of education? So parents believe that some schools are better than others, but generally in Canada, no matter what school you end up going to, you will get a good education. There is good quality of education in every school, for sure. Let's see here. Nathan GR says, good morning, Teacher Bob. Do you have a class before kindergarten, like pre-kindergarten, or is it the primary for a kid? Thank you in advance. So we have junior kindergarten and senior kindergarten. Before junior kindergarten, we don't really have formal school. So the earliest you start school in Canada is junior kindergarten. And before that, there are some private preschools for really, really young kids, like age 3. But generally, you start your formal education in Canada in junior kindergarten at age 4, 5, somewhere in there. Surayo says, how many students are in each classroom? So that ranges. For me, generally, I teach between 20 and 30 students, okay? I think last year, most of my classes had about 25, maybe 28 students in them. Sometimes I have a smaller class. I actually had a really small class last semester where I only had 10 students. That is really rare. That does not happen very often. I'm just gonna close the window. I'm not sure if you can hear the Canada geese outside. Classrooms also have windows. Generally, class sizes in Canadian high schools, it's between 20 and 30 students. 30 would be big, but that's about the size. Let's see here. So OG says, hi Bob, I'm from Indonesia. How do you start classes in Canada? Many Indonesian people are confused about how to start classes in English. I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but generally if you want to take a class in Canada, you find a school where you want to take the class at, and if you are the right age, you enroll in the school. If you're an adult, you can take night classes or what we call continuing education, and you would just go to a local college or university and ask if they have any adult classes or if they have any evening classes. And oftentimes in Canada, if you want to learn English, you can take an English class no matter how old you are at a local college. We call it English as a second language. You can go there and learn that. Let's see here. I feel bad right now because there are a lot of questions and I'm not going to get through all of them. I'll do a few more and then we'll continue with the lesson. Yuko says, this is my first time to ask. Oh, cool, Yuko. In Japan, elementary schools provide students with school lunch and students pay for it. How about in Canada? So this again is different from school to school. Our school has a paid lunch 3 days a week, and this is a high school. The grade school that my children go to, they bring a lunch every day. There is no paid lunch. But there are schools that have cafeterias. That's a place in the school where students can go for lunch. In some schools, students get food every day at no cost up to grade 1 or 2. That's rare. But in some schools, students can buy lunch every day. So it really depends school to school. It's certainly not what we would say across the board. Next one. Andre Cruciant says, hello, Andre. I remember when I didn't know the words tray and locker to designate these objects. It was so frustrating. So yeah, it's hard to know, right? Like a tray in Canada, a tray would be, a flat thing that you get when you go to the cafeteria and you put your food on it. And a locker is what I showed you in the hallway where you can put your things. Syed has a question here from Somalia. Do students wear a special uniform for all levels of school in Canada? This, again, depends on the school the students go to. Some schools have uniforms where students have to wear a school uniform, and some schools do not. So anyways, let me see this just a sec here. So some schools have school uniforms, some schools do not. So that's something that parents who are involved in the school might decide if students will wear uniforms or not. Let's see here. Pear has a question. Let me paste it here. Do students at school need to learn a second language? If they do, when do they start to learn it? So in Canada, you need to learn French, and you learn French from kindergarten till grade 12. But you only spend a little bit of time each week learning French. Students in Canada, when they're done an English-speaking school in grade 12, if they took, let me rephrase that. You need to take French from grade 1 to grade 9, but after that, you don't have to take French. It's optional. Let me just check something here. Sorry, folks, I'm getting distracted. From grade 10, 11, and 12, you can continue taking French. And then at the end of grade 12, you have a certain degree of fluency. It's not amazing, but enough that if you went to live in Quebec, which is a French-speaking province, you would be able to get by. You would be able to get by in that language. Let me just check something here. Okay, next question. Lucas says, let's see here. Which educational level do you think the Canadian government should invest in more? I think colleges and universities. I think that's where, across the board, that would be a great place for the government to invest. So great, all levels of education, it would be good. Anyways, let's continue the lesson, folks. When you're in school, sometimes you have to write a test. A test is something that you need to study for. And lots of times students are stressed when they have a test coming up. I wanted to mention tests though, because during the course of a school year, students will have a lot of tests. And in Canada, at the end of the school year, you will have an exam. So an examination. So there is a slight difference between a test and an exam in how I use it and how we use it in Canadian schools. I know in other places in the world, you might have several exams during a course, but in Canada, you have a test, like every couple weeks you might have a test, and then eventually at the end of your semester or school year, you will have an exam. Exams are stressful. In our school, exams are 2 to 3 hours long. And you need to basically prove that you learned something. You need to study everything you learned during that course. and you have to be able to express yourself clearly. Many students come to school on a school bus, and I know around the world, school buses have all different kinds of looks and shapes and sizes. In Canada, almost every school bus looks like this. They are usually yellow. They are usually very clearly marked as a school bus. They have flashing lights when they stop to pick up kids. When you see a school bus with flashing lights and the stop sign out, you are required by law to stop. You have to stop. If you don't, you'll get a ticket. But most kids in Canada would get a ride to school on a school bus, or they might walk to school. So if you live close to your school, you would walk. When you are all done school, at the very end, you would get a diploma. So the diploma is this actual piece of paper. So if you finish school, you would get a diploma. And you would get your diploma at your graduation. And we do have a short form of this. We say grad. But this is a diploma, and that is the paper you would get at the end of a school. What am I trying to say here? You get a diploma in Canada, in Ontario, at the end of grade 8 and at the end of grade 12, and when you are done college or university. And you get that at your graduation. So the graduation is a ceremony that you go to. Let me just check let's do a few questions again. Let's see here. Nexion says, "Hi Bob, as a teacher, what do you think is the best way to teach English inside the classroom?" So if I was to be teaching you guys in a classroom, I would make sure that every day we did some reading, writing, listening, speaking, and vocabulary building. I would make sure that every week you had a song that I wanted you to listen to many times. I would have a television show that we would watch once a week in class. I would have every day do those 5 things, but Monday I would probably focus heavier on reading, Tuesday a little heavier on writing, Wednesday a little heavier on listening, and then Thursday, Friday I would focus on speaking. That's how I would structure a class if I taught English. And generally that's what I try to do when I teach French as well. Let's see here. I have to tidy up my questions here for a sec. Just give me a moment. And then I will do a few more questions. Just have to do some clicking and deleting here. Fedor says, "Are there any slang words meaning professor?" Not that I know of, but we do say prof. And students do sometimes call a teacher teach. So they'll say, "My English prof gave me a lot of homework this week." So they'll use prof instead of professor. And sometimes students will say, "Yo, teach, is there any homework tonight?" So it's very informal. I prefer students don't do that, but sometimes we do have students who use teach instead of teacher. Let's see here. Let me see. Ellen says, "Is it necessary to study at university in your opinion? Because I've heard that nowadays students are supposed to go to college, but they don't do that." I think that the more education you get, the better. It is my hope that all of my own children will go to university or college after grade 12. I think that it isn't just the subjects that you're learning when you go to university or college. I think your mind is challenged and your mind it expands a bit. So I think it's good for students to always go. That's just my opinion though. Madi says, "Hi Bob, are you missing the old education?" No, I like new things, Madi. Every year there's something new and I love new things. So there's always a new app or a new piece of technology or a new method of teaching, and I love it. I just love new things, so I don't miss the old way of teaching. Etugan says, "Hi Bob, thanks for everything. Are you in charge of any groups of students during the school year?" So generally, I am somewhat in charge of my first class of the day. We have a few extra minutes that we spend together just getting to know each other. But throughout the school year, we sometimes do activities outside of class where like we'll have different challenges where different groups of students, like we had a paper airplane challenge one year, and then it was a group of students and myself, and we had to make a paper airplane and compete against other groups. So sometimes I'm in charge of students in some ways. Let's see here. I'm kind of skipping through the questions a bit. I'm sorry about that. Maybe I'm going to go to the bottom and go backwards. I don't know if people will like that. Fedora says, do you have Wi-Fi in your school, and can students use the internet during lessons, tests, and exams? So we have Wi-Fi throughout the school. We have an incredibly fast internet connection. Students are strongly encouraged to only use the Wi-Fi for learning. We do realize that students sometimes get distracted by technology. We generally do not like students to have phones in our classrooms, so we ask students to keep their phones in their pockets or in a basket at the front of the room, but they may have their laptop. We set up our desks so it's very easy for the teacher to see the laptop screen, and we're very vigilant to make sure students are only using that laptop for learning. That being said, students do sometimes use their laptops to play games and things. But yes, we have really good Wi-Fi, and I think that's crucial to learning. I think it's good to have good Wi-Fi and learn how to manage it. Michelle says, hi Bob, is there a difference between a degree and a diploma? In my sense, you get a degree from a university. That's my understanding of it. And you get a diploma from almost any kind of school. So I have a degree. My degree is in teaching. So that is a university degree. I also have a diploma saying I graduated. Let's see here. Susanna says, what does grading in your school look like? In Serbia, in elementary and middle school, it goes from 1 to 5, and in college from 6 to 10. These are grades at school. So I'm not sure what you mean by grading. So you might mean when I grade student work. So if I have a test from a student and I need to grade it, the student will get a score out of 100, okay? If you're asking about how do grades work, we go from age 4 or 5, which is junior kindergarten, and we go to grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. When you're in grade 8, you are 13, around 13. Then grade 9 through 12. When you're in grade 12, you're about 17 or 18, and then you go to college or university. So I'm not sure which one you meant. Sorry. Let's see. I'm just trying to find another. Oh, here's a question on attending a school. Jordan says, hey Bob, what is the difference between I attended and I? So your second sentence is not correct, so I don't want to say it out loud. So you would say I attended, and then you would say the name of your school. So let's say you went to, Hamilton Elementary School number 1. You would say, oh, I attended Hamilton Elementary School number 1. That would be how you would say it. Let's see here. Next question. Ellen says, what is the difference between having a class and taking a class? They are the same. So you could say, oh, I can't go out for coffee right now. I have a class this afternoon. So that's kind of like a day-to-day conversation way of referring to that actual class. But if you want to say that you are taking a class, you would say, oh, I'm taking a class at the local college. So there is a slight difference. You wouldn't say, I can't go out for coffee, I'm taking a class this afternoon. You would say, I can't go out for coffee because I have a class this afternoon. But when you're referring to the class in general, you would say, oh, I have a class, I'm taking a class at the local college. I'm getting my words mixed up here. I'm sorry about that. I'm kind of tired. Did you notice that this morning? Just a little bit tired. Let's see here. Andre says, so you don't get angry with your students. I remember when I was in elementary school and my teacher pulled my hair for being disobedient, something I never forget or I've never forgotten. So that is illegal in Canada now. So I know what you mean though. When I was a kid in school, teachers would kick students. They would kick them. When I was a kid, teachers were quite mean sometimes. Some teachers were mean. Currently in Canada, teachers don't use any of those forms of punishment. It is illegal. It is against the law to pull hair or kick or push. It's just you do not do that in Canada. It's very important that you treat everyone with respect. And in Canada, that means that teachers treat their students with respect by respecting them as a person and not doing things like that. So I understand that happened to you in the past. And I think 30, 40, 50 years ago, some teachers were quite mean to students. And it's unfortunate, in my opinion. There's no need to get angry with students. Let me see here. Roseanne from Brazil says, hi Bob, can your students use cell phones in class? So if I let them, if I say you can use your cell phones now, they are allowed to use them. But generally in our classes, we ask that students keep their phones in their pockets or turn them in during the class so that they aren't distracted. It's just a good way to do it. Kim has a question. Kim's question is, hi Bob, in Canada is homeschooling common? What is the difference between homeschooling and formal education in Canada? So homeschooling is completely legal in Canada. If a parent chooses to not send their kids to a school, they have the right to teach their kids at home. And I'm not sure what the percentage is, but there are people who homeschool their kids. So either the mom or dad is home during the day and the kids have school at home and their parent is their teacher. So it's quite common. It's not the majority. I think 95% of kids in Canada are in school. And there is a small percentage that do homeschool their kids. Let me just check something here. I have a few things to talk about yet, and we're running a little low on time. Let me find that. Subjects. Should we talk about subjects? So this is high school specific, and this is very Canadian. But in school, in high school, you can take English classes. In Canada, if you take an English class and you're an English speaker, it's really a literature class and a writing class. So if you are an English speaker in a Canadian high school, you will be reading novels and you will be writing essays. We also teach French as a second language. You can take a geography class where you learn about maps and the world and all of those fun things. We also have, let me just check something here. Something weird is happening. I'll figure it out later. We have history classes where we learn about things that have happened in the world, art and music classes. We have math or mathematics classes, science classes, so things like physics, biology, chemistry, computer studies, physical education, where you learn to play different sports and learn to be healthy. We also call it phys ed, that's the short form. We have ESL, which is English as a second language. So ESL classes are quite popular. In my school, we have a number of ESL students. And then we also have food and nutrition classes, where you learn about making food and eating healthy. And we have shop classes, which aren't about shopping. Our shop classes are classes where you learn to make things out of wood, or you learn to make things out of metal. So they're actually an industrial arts type class. It's a class where you learn to make things. So anyways, Bob the Canadian here. Thank you for watching. I'm not sure if the live stream is clear for you, but here's what I want to say. Thank you for watching. We're almost at the 1 hour mark. So we are going to wrap this up. If you are new here, you should click the subscribe button down there. Everyone should give me a like if this lesson helped you. If the lesson didn't help you, you don't have to click the thumbs up. There will be a live lesson tomorrow evening, again, from the farm, where we will look at it's an open topic. You can ask any question that you want. I apologize that I did not get to all the questions. And please remember, if there were parts of this live stream you didn't understand, there will be subtitles tomorrow, okay? They are the automatic subtitles from YouTube, but they can help you. Usually I speak clearly enough and slowly enough that the subtitles work. But I'm just going to thank everyone in the chat. Thanks everyone for coming. Oh, I made a spelling mistake there. Coming, there we go. Have a great day or evening. Live lesson tomorrow night, my time. Tomorrow night at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Open topic, ask me anything. I hope to see you there. Anyways, Bob the Canadian here. You are learning English with Bob the Canadian. I hope this listening lesson helped you. I hope you learned a few things about school. I hope that you have good memories of school and that this lesson didn't bring back bad memories of school, but that can happen sometimes. I'm going to push the stop button. This was a lot of fun.